his radical lifestyle change. He became a junior high teacher. He graduated, he'd been a junior high dropout. He graduated from junior college on Friday night and high school the next night on Saturday night. By that time, he had 3 kids. I had my brother Joel, and then my sister Dana, Robin, myself, and my little brother Stephen. And he went into the classroom, and it was that time in life when you could take the students out for a Pepsi or something after church, or a Coke after school. And he often did that, and there were a lot of kids in troubled homes, and so he ended up saying, "Be out on your curb Sunday morning, I'm taking you to church." And it got to the point where he would bring us kids to church, go back, fill up his car, come back, go out, pick up another carload and bring him. And out of that came the chaplain. My dad, he was a student of my father's. My father, he came from a broken home, and my dad recognized himself in him. Five pastors, 2 missionaries, and countless ladies. 750 people there. And all of these people talking about the difference that my father had made in their life. But what my father would have said had he been there is that Jesus made the difference in his life. So, you know about my husband Greg. We have a daughter who's 31, Aubrey. She works for American Airlines. We have a daughter, Spencer, who's married and lives in Oregon. She's 28. With their husband, Logan. They just bought their first little house. Pretty cool. Doing great. Life is sweet. Greg and I feel very blessed. So I want to go back to my family for a moment. My older brother, Joe. My sister, Dana. And I'm just going to give you a brief recap, and then I'm going to go back to my brother, Joe. My sister, Dana, I don't know if you were aware, but I was in Houston for 3 months. Yeah, she's battling terminal cancer, and so we're in experimental treatments at MD Anderson in Houston. So every 3 weeks we're back in Houston. One of us is going with her, while my sister, Robin, she's a university professor. When she's out of school, she goes. And then when she's back in school, I go. And my little brother, his work schedule doesn't allow that, so I take up the slack on that one. So Dana is battling cancer. She's divorced and has no kids, which is why the family takes up the slack. My sister Robin lives up in Monterey. She's a university professor, and Dana was a high school teacher, by the way. She had to retire because of her cancer. Robin wanted to have many, many, many kids, miscarried, had 1 daughter. And this daughter, Camila, was in between our 2 daughters. So it was Aubrey, and then my sister's daughter, Camila, and then Spencer. And we were all up camping. We liked to camp 7 years ago now, and Camila wasn't feeling good. And 2 weeks later, she was diagnosed with leukemia. And at the age of 23, 9 months after she'd been diagnosed, she passed away. And it was my sister's only child. And my sister's not a believer. And so I want to tell you guys something. I led Camila to the Lord. And I did not share that with my sister Robin because it would have bothered her. And so I decided that I was going to wait for Robin to ask me about it. And there were times after Camila died, it was completely horrific. You guys can imagine. Robin tried to kill herself. We were up, Camila was at a cancer hospital up in Seattle, and so I was able to get up there before Camila died and spend some time with her. She was already in a coma at that time, but was able to go in and kiss her and talk to her, in her ear and stuff. And the grief that I saw in my sister, some of you guys have probably experienced the burying of a child, and we're never supposed to outlive our kids, right? And I'm sorry about that. And it's the Lord's mercy and grace will get you through that. And I don't say that lightly, right? My sister is still not a Christian. But after Camila died, she spent a lot of time with me. And she came down, which I find very ironic because Greg's a pastor, right? And my sister Robin is a very adamant non-Christian. And so she came down and she spent like a month with me, and we would go for walks, and her grief was so palpable, it was heartbreaking. And we were walking one day, and I'll never forget this, she grabbed my shoulders, we were having this conversation, and she said, what if I'm wrong? What if there's an eternal life and I'm wrong about it? I said, Rob, do you want me to share my thoughts with you? And she said, no. I said, okay, I won't. Okay, but when you're ready to, you tell me. So it was, now, Camila's been dead now for 6 years. It wasn't until this year that she asked me about it. She asked if I had ever talked to Camila. And I'll tell you, I'll be completely honest with you, I was a little bit nervous to talk to my sister about it, right? But my sister's response was not at all what I expected. And no, I would love to tell you my sister's made a radical change. She's come to the Lord, she hasn't. But I'll tell you what, she calls me all the time, asking me questions. Asking me questions. And I'm really grateful for that. So that's Robin. She is not a Christian, and she now is airless. Then it's myself, and then a little brother, Stephen. So now I want to go back to my big brother. And I want to be really careful what I say, because maybe some of you have experienced this. But my big brother, Joe, we are very close. I love him greatly. And Joe, I'll just cut right to the chase, he's in prison for the rest of his life. He'll never get out. And that's okay, that's where he should be, right? And I just happened to be the right age for Joe to take out some of his aggression on me, okay? And I don't have to say any more about that. I think you know what I'm talking about. And perhaps that's happened to some of you. I certainly hope not. I hope I'm the only one in this room that that's happened to. He took that aggression out on me. And as a result, even though I was raised in the church, I did a complete tailspin as I got older. When I was younger, I just did whatever I was told to do, and I was kind of a perfect kid. And you look back and you say, "Oh, I see why you were that way." But I didn't want to hurt my parents. Being raised in a small town with a brother who was kind of a notorious quote-unquote criminal, there's a lot of publicity. We were in the National Enquirer. I remember I was in college and my brother had been caught for the last time. And he is where he needs to be, okay? So please, as much as I love him, don't think I want him out. I don't, right? And he understands that too. More about that in a second. And this is before I met Greg. I was living in Fresno. I took a year off of school. And I came home. My mother had a dentist appointment, so I drove with her to the dentist office and just sat with her. And at this time, each one of us were being followed by 2 plainclothes FBI. I was living in Fresno, and so I had 2 plainclothes FBI following me at all times. All of our phones were bugged. We knew it. My parents were they were exemplary in that they reminded us over and over, don't be mad at the law enforcement, they're doing their job. And I really appreciate that, because you see a lot of times people kind of lashing out at people who are trying to do what they're supposed to do, right? And my parents were very big on that. I know there was when my brother, before he was arrested the last time, he was on the run for about 11 months. And during that time, he was in all the newspapers. I lived in Fresno, and I saw his mug shot in the post office one time, and he was on the news a lot. And I just lost my train of thought with this. So we were followed by plainclothes FBI at all times. And what the FBI did, one of their tactics was, because they thought that maybe my parents knew where my brother was. And my parents didn't. Because had they known, they would have told. Because at this point we knew my brother was guilty. Well, I always kind of knew he was guilty. But you know, your parents, you want to believe the best. And so
the FBI had a tactic where they would call every night, 7 days a week for 11 minutes, about 2 o'clock in the morning. And they would say to my parents, you know, hello, da-da-da, please tell us where your son is. And they were doing that to try to break my mom and dad down. That's okay, because my brother needed to be caught. And so I went home one time, and it was actually the same time as I went with my mom to the dentist office, and there was a National Enquirer right here. I don't, as a rule, read National Enquirer, but it was there, so I picked it up. And I was really grateful that I did, because there was a 2-page spread, and there were pictures of us in it, and, you know, my mom and dad, and I closed it up, and I thought, how do I buy every single National Enquirer? And I was super poor, I didn't have any money, and I thought, how do I protect my parents from this? And, so that night, my father said, Leslie, please don't answer the phone. Please don't pick the phone up. Just let me handle it. Well, I said, okay, Dad, but I knew I was going to. So I laid on the couch, and when the phone rang, I listened. I just picked up the receiver, and I listened to this FBI man talk to my sweet dad and say, you know you know where your son is. And my father would say the same thing every night. I don't know where my son is. I'm sorry. Have a good night. My dad was always so gentle. Have a good night. And so eventually my brother was caught in the state of Maine. And here's where what you guys do is so important. We were camping. We're big campers. And we always go camping up in Kings Canyon every year. And this particular summer, I've gone there since the year I was born, and I'll be 58. So I've gone for, this summer will be 58 years. And this particular summer, it was just my mother and father and my little brother and I. My 2 sisters couldn't make it. Our big brother was on the run. FBI was up in Kings Canyon. You know, I don't know what they were doing. They didn't have a tent, you know, so I'm not sure how they did it. But I remember, I wasn't a Christian at the time, so I would walk past them and flip them off, and you know, this type of thing. And my father, if he would have known that, my parents, I would have just been in so much trouble. It was so terrible of me to do that. But I was not who I should have been, you know. And so don't ask me what they did, but they were up there, and all of a sudden, my sisters drove up with their husbands at the time. No, it was just the 2 of them. They drove up, and we were like, you surprised us! I can't believe it! This is so awesome! And we were so excited that they didn't have the heart to say anything, right? And it wasn't until breakfast the next morning, we were sitting down. I had to go back to Fresno that day to go to work. And the road is very windy, so you have to go slow. There are a lot of turnouts. And at breakfast time, my sister said, there's a reason why we're here. Joe was caught. He's guilty. It was horrific. It was a horrible, heartbreaking time. My little brother took off running, so my dad asked me to go follow him, and so my mom and dad stayed there with my 2 older sisters. And so I'm driving back to Fresno now, and there's a numbness in my heart. I don't really know what I'm feeling. I will tell you this, that our neighborhood in Porterville was cordoned off. And the Boston Globe, the New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, the LA Times, all of these newspapers, CNN, they were all there. They were camped out in our yard. And so I'm driving back to Fresno, and I don't know what I'm feeling. I do remember I wasn't crying. I was just completely cold inside. And there's a passage that's very slow on the mountains. It's all cliffs straight down. And so they have like a little rock wall about this tall. But you know, so you just drive really cautiously. And I pulled over to the side of the road, and I thought to myself, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to jump off this cliff. And of course, as I stood there, I thought, that would just hurt my parents even more, you know. But here is what started the change in my life. As I'm standing there at that cliff, I saw 3 different carloads of people who I recognized. And they were all people from my mom and dad's church. driving up there on this windy road to make sure that my parents had heard that my brother had been caught, don't go home. And I sat there at the side of the road and I watched. I saw the first car with people I knew from my mom and dad's church, and they didn't see me. And I want to tell you guys something at this time. I was living with my boyfriend. I'm not proud to say this. I was doing drugs. I was drinking. I was very foul-mouthed. I was completely unhappy. I was black inside. And so I stood there at the side of the road. I saw that one car go by, and that was the beginning of my healing. And then I saw and I didn't leave after that. I stood there, and then I saw like maybe 7 minutes later another car. They had all gone up without knowing that the other people were going. Just to let my parents know this was the church being the church for my mom and dad. And this is where I want to take a detour for a second, and I bet I'm going way too long. I'm so sorry. I want to detour for a second. This is where what you do is so important. Don't ever think that the church is just a nothing institution. It is the most important institution. And what you bring to the table of the people in your world, your families, your children, your friends, your co-workers, what you bring as a Christian is the biggest thing that you can do. What you do as a Christian matters. Nothing else matters. I like hip-hop music. Hip-hop doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is you and your relationship to the people around you, and how can you let them know that you have something that they need. And so often we don't live our lives that way. We just kind of live our lives, yeah, whatever. The reality is, as Christians, because we are the center part ones, that's what it means, we need to live our lives in such a way that people want what we have. And we need to love people enough to say, you know what, even if we don't know what to say, to be able to say, you know, I don't really have the words, but I just know that something's different in my life. Come with me. Come to church with me. I don't know all the answers. We'll find it out together. Complete transparency. So that started my healing up. I went home. I got to really rip this up because I know we have prayer time. I'm going to speed this up now. So I went home. Like 4 days later, I broke up with my boyfriend. I quit my job. I called Point Loma, if you can believe that, and I said, I don't have any money. My parents can't pay my way. I have no money. By the end of the day, I was accepted to school. I moved down to San Diego. 6 days later, school started. I had nothing, right? But I decided, and that was the start. I did not go down to Point Loma as a Christian. But I'll tell you what did happen. When I came back when I started bouncing back and I wanted to re-explore faith, I want to tell you guys something. It wasn't Jesus Christ that I really wanted to re-explore, or what brought me back. I went back to what I knew, which was the church building. The church building is what I knew. And so when I decided I've got to change my life, it wasn't even, I'm going to renew my relationship with Jesus Christ. It was, I got to get to church. So let me tell you guys something. If those of you with kids, take them to soccer practice after church is over. You know what I mean? When our kids were little and they played soccer, I didn't care what they wore. They'd wear their soccer clothes and shin guards to church, and at 12:01, as soon as that church service was over, we were gone. But if it was before church, they just stayed. They stayed at church. And I told the coaches, and the coaches loved me, right? And they loved Greg. Greg was raised in the Amazon jungle, so he's like really cool and speaks this really weird dialect, also Spanish. And they all loved us. And I said, look, you know what? We'll bring them after church. And they never got mad at us, you know? Make church the priority. Make church a priority. Not only for those of you with kids, but for yourselves. If you have a hangnail, don't stay home from church. We need Right? The church needs you. Not only that, go around and say, hey, come to church with me. I don't have it all figured out, but we'll find out together. Let me introduce you to my pastor. Let me take you out for a cup of tea. Okay, so I'm going to really hurry up.
Keep going.
So there are all these things I'm leaving out and I'm omitting, but I want to tell you something beautiful about my brother. My brother is now in Massachusetts. He's in prison there. And golly, I would say 9 years ago, I went back to visit him. It's very expensive to go visit my brother because you only get to see him for 2.5 hours. It's a very high security prison. 2.5 hours, and it's every other day. So if I'm going to come from California all the way to Massachusetts, I don't want to just see him for 2.5 hours. Which means I have to have a rental car, I have to have a hotel, I have to get food, airfare. So it turns into a big old chunk of money, right? So I was there in winter. Can I get a sip of water, I think? And this is where the change started in his life. He's called OG, old guy. In this prison, he's been there the longest. Since they opened their doors, he's been in this prison. And that is his nickname, OG. So this one day, I went to visit him, and there was a blizzard. And let me tell you, how many of you guys have ever been into a prison visiting room? Okay, oh yeah, I was going to say, it's not that uncommon. Let me just say this too, by the way. It's really big to me. Everyone has a story. Everyone in my world knows I have a brother in prison. It's the way it is. I wish he wasn't in prison, right? I wish he hadn't hurt the people he hurt. But he's just in prison. That's just part of my life. I just talk about it all the time. I'm not ashamed to tell them that he's in prison. We need to make it more part of our vernacular. So anyway, I had gone back there and there was, so I went to, I'm sorry, this is what I was going to say. I went to every prison he was in. We went all the time. We went twice a week to see my brother. Let me tell you one beautiful story about my parents. It was a Saturday before Easter, and we were at California Men's Colony. If any of you guys know where that is, it's on the one. If you're going past San Luis Obispo, there's that big prison right there. Yeah, it's called CMC, and in their visiting room, at least at that time, they had all these vending machines. It was medium security. So they had all these vending machines, and so we were there the day before Easter, so my parents bought all of the boiled eggs in the vending machine. And it was a huge visiting area, massive, hundreds of people. They hid Easter eggs. And all 5 of us, including my brother, who's at CMC, we hunted Easter eggs in that visiting room. I mean, what a stroke of brilliance on my mom and dad's part, right? I love that. So anyway, so I saw it all. So I went to see my brother back in Massachusetts, and for the first time in my life, I was the only visitor in the visiting room. That has never happened to me before. I'm sure it will never happen again. But this visiting room is about the size of this sanctuary, and in this visiting room there are 6 guards. That's a lot for this small room. And when you visit, you sit, I'll just pretend this is a chair. You hug hello and goodbye, and then you sit like this. You can't cross your legs. You can't sit like this. You have to sit like this. He's across from me. We can't touch. We can't get up. Which is interesting because my mom is 91, almost 92, and when we take her to visit, she has to go to the restroom, right? But she can't. They won't let her back in. They're very, very strict. So this one day, and we know this, so you hug hello, goodbye, you don't touch, you don't do anything else, you don't get out of your seat. But this blizzard day, now I want to go back. My mom and dad taught us, just like with law enforcement, they taught us to be very kind to the guards. And they were always really adamant, they do not have an easy job. And if you've ever seen that, you see people kind of talking down to the guards and talking smack to the guards and stuff. And it's like, they're doing their job. But like anything else, there are some who are good and some who are not so good. And we get that. And so my parents were always really big on being kind to the guards. So because of that, being so cemented in my brain from all of these years of my brother being in prison, the guards, for the most part, love me unless they're just not very happy people. You know, if they're just normal people, they love me. But those who aren't very happy, they don't like me very much. So I'd always say, how you doing? You know, do you watch the Patriots? Who do you follow? All that stuff. And so this one particular day, when you go to visit my brother, you go in the visiting room, and then they call him up. So you're sitting in the visiting room, waiting. He comes. He has to have like a strip search before he comes in, and then I can get up and give him a hug, and then he sits here, I sit here, you know. So this one day, I was the only one there with the 6 guards, and my brother came in, I got up, we hugged, he sat down, and then the wheels started turning, and I said, Joe, I'm going to go talk to the guard at the table for a second. He said, Leslie, please don't. Because he was afraid they would make me leave, because they have that right. But remember, I was nice to those guys before, so I've already established a relationship with them, right? Christians, what do? Everywhere you go, you're held to a higher standard. You are. Be kind to those people. Be the kind of people want to be around. Seriously. Don't be judgmental and critical. That's gross. So Joe said, Leslie, please don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. And I said, you know, I just have a feeling. I think it'll be okay. He said, Leslie, please don't. And so, but I did. I got up and I went to the desk over here with 2 guards, and I said, you know, this is a really weird question, but I've never been in this situation before where I've never been in a visiting room where it's just myself and my brother. I said, since it's 6 of you guys, can we get up and walk around? And the guard said, I've never been asked that question. I said, yeah, I mean, why would you ever, there would never be a need to, but it's just us. They said, well, I guess it'd be okay. So I went back to my brother and I said, come here, brother. And what does a prisoner miss more than anything else? Touch, right? Touch, anything like that. So I went to my brother and I reached out my hands and he said, what are you doing? I said, come here. And I reached up. Long story short, we started walking all the way around these chairs. And he could not believe it, right? And then I taught him how to skip. Because he hadn't skipped in 50 years, right? So he's going like this. So I'm going, no, hop, hop down, hop down, you know? And so we're holding hands like this, and we're skipping. And then we start singing the hymns of our childhood. We start singing Victory in Jesus. And then we start singing at the top of our lungs, and we're harmonizing. And we're singing Amazing Grace, and we're singing Grace Greater Than All My Sin, and we're singing At the Cross. And this goes on. We only have 2.5 hours, right? So this maybe went on for like 45 minutes. We get back to the chair, and my brother breaks. He broke. And for the first time, he didn't even know how to cry loud anymore, because you have to be so tough, right? And he's very well respected. He didn't even know how to cry, and he started howling. And he fell to the ground, and all he could say was, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm such a failure. I'm so sorry. And he was crying so loudly that the guards, I just looked at the guards and went like this. It's okay. And I went down and I got on the floor around my brother, and I just laid on top of him and scratched his back. You know, that long, and then I scratched his hair. And I said, Joe, I forgive you. I forgive you. And he is still sobbing, and he said, I asked God so many times to help me not hurt women. And I said, brother, he answered your prayer. He said, what do you mean he answered my prayer? I said, look where you are. You can't hurt anyone here. You can hurt men, but you can't hurt women anymore. And the light bulb started turning on. And I want you to know something, you guys. My brother now is a radically saved inmate. Radically. I started a thing about 4 years ago. I call it the Christmas Fund, and I was leading a Bible study, and I said, you know what, I'm going to do something kind of weird. Give me whatever money you want to donate. I ended up with like $72 or something. I sent a check to the prison, and I sent a letter to my brother, and I said, we're going to try something new this year. I'm sending you a check for $72.13 or whatever it was. And I said, I want you to buy Christmas gifts for the people on your tier. And that would be things out of the canteen, right? And he said, are you kidding me? I said, you can't spend one penny on yourself. He said, okay. So Christmas that year, I think it was like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, it happened to be on a Sunday. And he called my cell phone because I can send money and he can now call my cell phone. And I answered the phone. I knew it was him because I saw the number. It's Massachusetts State Department of Corrections. And I said, Joe! And he could not talk. He was crying so much. And he said, if I could be any place else in the world right now, I would choose to be right here. Because these inmates who don't get anything, who don't ever hear from their families, got a gift. I want you to know, I wish I would have brought my emails. I want you to know this is now year 4. And he is making a difference in that prison. Praise be to God. Here's what I want you guys to know, Cars people, and other churches as well, okay? Here's what you need to know. Jesus Christ is bigger than any obstacle, than any portion of self-consciousness or self-hate. Do any of you guys have self-hate? Boy, I did. I hated myself. Jesus Christ is bigger than our issues. He's bigger. He can heal us. He can radically change our lives. He radically changed my life. He radically changed my brother's life. Do you know what a miracle that is? That's a miracle. And he didn't have to. Jesus didn't have to spend 1 second of time on my brother. My brother's done so much damage. And praise the Lord, he sees us as we are and loves us as we can be. And so people, I tell you this, like I said earlier, there is no better time to be a Christian. There's no greater day to be the church than right now. Right now. But I'll tell you something. It's not up to your pastor to bring people into a relationship with Jesus Christ. It's up to you. It's not their job. It's also their job. But it is not only their job. Pastor, what are you going to do to get someone into the church? No, friends, that's your job. And how do you do it? It's not quite as difficult as we always think it is. It is simply A, loving the person, and B, being willing to open your mouth. That's the hardest part, right? Being willing to say, you know what? Do you go to church anywhere? Check out my church. We'll learn together. You don't have to have the answers. Just say, be honest. I don't know. I just know there's a difference in my life. And I want you to experience it. This is what we need to do now. Every single one of us, including you. Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes the pastor is so busy, their whole life is surrounded by church people. You know what I mean? And it's they have to do it too. Every single one of us. I challenge you, as we have a time of prayer, I challenge you to think of someone who you know the Lord is setting on your heart. And you have to be bold enough to be able to talk. You don't have to know all the answers. You don't have to have all the right scripture. You don't have to know the right words. You just have to be able to be humble enough to say, you know what, I don't know the answers. But I know that my life is different. I'm going to let you come. I'm going to skip the rest of the music. I'm just going to start playing. I'm going to let the prayer time, however you would like to.
Oh, thank you so much. Let's do it. Thank you. Can we just let the light off? I want us to just take this time. And actually, Pastor Michelle, could you I would love to actually have Pastor Michelle and also our sister Leslie, this garden, just come and minister to our sisters here. I still remember actually what Leslie told us during our pastor's retreat in a couple of, I think it's 2-3 years ago. She actually mentioned something like this. Nothing in this world actually amazes me. I've seen everything, I've experienced everything, I've lived through everything. But what never ceases to amaze is the grace of God. And I can see where she's coming from. What an amazing life testimony that she is sharing with us. So, God is good. He's a loving Father, and He knows the plan for each one of us. And the Bible tells us that He knows the plan that He has for us, and the plan is not to harm us. The plan is for hope and the future. And it also promises to us as we seek Him that we will be able to find Him. That He promised to be found by each one of us. That His grace, His love are available to all of us to experience and enjoy. So tonight, today is 30th of January. What a wonderful time, wonderful day. We surrender and rededicate our heart to the Lord. This is a perfect time to do that. Maybe some of us, need that reboot of our faith. Some of us need that reset. And what a time that God has allowed us to reset and reboot our faith tonight, Lord. So let's just bow our head right now together. Father, we just thank you so much for your loving grace, and thank you for just the story of your love of Leslie, life of Leslie and her family, Lord. What amazing the journey of transformation. What an amazing grace that you have exercised upon Leslie's family, Lord. Father, we just thank you so much. We are so encouraged by the story of transformation, the story of your loving and grace. And Father, that we know that the same grace, the same love and same kindness, same undeserving mercy are available to all of us here tonight, Lord. And we just invite the joy grace one more time upon each one of us, Lord, tonight, Lord. And Father, that we, Lord, just that we come before you, and Lord, just help us surrender to whatever holding us back, Lord. Help us just release the things that's been bogging us down, holding us back tonight, Lord. We want to reset our life and our faith, Lord Jesus. And we just invite your presence, Lord, and touch each one of us, Lord Jesus. We thank you, God. We praise you, Lord. We thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Thank you so much, God.
Thank you, Lord Jesus. Oh, Lord Jesus, have mercy. Have mercy on us, lead us in thy mercy,
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. Church front is open. I would love to invite you. If any of you just want to come forward in response to His grace, I would love to just invite you to come forward. And you can just sit on the floor. You can sit on the front pew. If you sit where you are, you can just pray where you are. If you just want to come front, and I will be more than happy to just pray for you. And I would love to have actually Pastor Michelle and Leslie to minister, and just to pray for the sisters and whoever, and maybe Rachel can.
Yeah, fine, thank you.
Father, we just thank you so much for your just amazing grace. Lord, Father, that nothing, Father,